Well, it's happened again. Another right-wing leader has been blocked from power. And this time it's Marine Le Pen, banned from running for president for 5 years. Why was she really targeted? Was it because she criticised mass migration and the EU?
Do you have a comment?
That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I know all about it, and a lot of people thought she wasn't going to be convicted of anything, and I don't know if it means conviction, but she was banned for running for 5 years, and she's the leading candidate. That sounds like this country.
Trump called this out multiple times this week. Let's just have a look at the post he did on Truth. The witch hunt against Marine Le Pen is another example of European leftists using lawfare to silence free speech and censor their political opponent, this time going so far as to put that opponent in prison. It is the same playbook that was used against me by a group of lunatics and losers like Norm Eisen, Andrew Weissman and Lisa Monaco. They spent the last 9 years thinking of nothing else and they failed. Because the people of the United States realised that they were only corrupt lawyers and politicians. I don't know Marine Le Pen, but do appreciate how hard she worked for so many years. She suffered losses, but kept on going, and now, just before what would be a big victory, they get her on a minor charge that she probably knew nothing about. Sounds like a bookkeeping error to me. It is all so bad for France and the great French people, no matter what side they are on. Free Marine Le Pen. And yes, this is not just about France. This is a pattern. It's undeniable that we are seeing an inordinate amount of right-wing voices being targeted, being silenced, jailed, or destroyed by political lawfare. Ironically, JD Vance called out the EU just a month ago for jailing people that they disagree with.
And what I worry about is the threat from within.
The mainstream media is repeatedly labelling Marine Le Pen as far right, which is ironic because she's actually often criticised by conservatives for being too centred. But what does the mainstream media really mean by far right? Is it that she won't bow down to the EU? That she wants to put France first? And we have to be conscious of the associations that the mainstream media tries to make in our minds. Who do you think of subconsciously when you hear far right? You think of Hitler. So they know that when they label somebody as far right, your subconscious mind thinks of Hitler. They want you to reject these people before you even think to look into what they're about. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to break down what really just happened with Marine Le Pen, why it's a warning to the West, and how we fight back. The newspapers at the moment will have you believe that Marine Le Pen was not even that popular, but there's evidence to contradict that, including the 500,000 plus people who have signed a petition to fight what just happened this week. Unless her conviction is overturned before the 2027 election, she will not be able to run. Pretty much everybody knows that there is corruption running rampant throughout the political realm, but it's for the most part completely ignored when it comes to leftist leaders and politicians. And then we watch as right-wing politicians are targeted. In case you have doubts about whether or not this is actually happening, I'm going to go through all of the examples and it will shock you. It really will. So in France, Marine Le Pen sentenced and barred from running in the elections. In Romania, the elections were cancelled because they did not like the results, and the winning candidate was arrested and imprisoned. Germany, preparations for a similar scenario against the AfD party because it was gaining too much popularity. In Slovakia, an assassination attempt against anti-war Prime Minister Robert Fico. In Hungary, continued attacks against Orbán and pressure to exclude Hungary from EU decisions because Hungary is pushing back against what the EU wants. Estonia, 25% of Russians barred from voting in the elections. I've got more here. Germany's AfD has had bank accounts shut down, intelligence agencies monitoring them. Tommy Robinson was jailed in the UK. Enoch Burke was jailed in Ireland. They've been threatening to charge Conor McGregor for a social media post in Ireland in recent weeks. Then you also have an array of journalists and opposition leaders in Ukraine who have been arrested. So Viktor Medvedchuk, who is an opposition leader in Ukraine, was arrested in 2022 and exiled. There's been arrest of multiple Ukrainian journalists. Ukraine has imprisoned or exiled dozens of opposition for criticizing Zelensky or the war. One notable person is Alexander Dubinsky, and he is continuously posting videos online trying to get the attention of the Trump administration to help. Zelensky banned over 10 opposition parties, mainly those with pro-Russian or nationalist leanings. Nigel Farage in the UK had his bank accounts closed for political reasons. Geert Wilders repeatedly taken to court for hate speech due to his anti-Islam views. In Canada, protesters against COVID mandates had their bank accounts frozen by Trudeau's government. In Australia, right-wing and anti-lockdown protesters were jailed and brutalised, whilst the BLM protests were allowed. So we're seeing these hypocrisies all throughout the world. So I just want to break down exactly what Marine Le Pen has been accused of. So what happened is she was given money by the EU to pay her staff, but they say that the staff were not allowed to do work for her party under that pay, and that it was only meant to be for parliamentary work. This immediately comes across as very hypocritical because almost 140 EU lawmakers misused money for assistance. Imagine 140. Dozens of EU lawmakers had to pay back money to the European Parliament for misusing funds. Yet only a limited number of cases are passed on to prosecutors, raising serious questions about how the Parliament is tackling the practice. So basically, they're very, very selectively choosing who they are going to go after. Le Pen has argued that she followed the rules as she understood them, and that this basically comes down to different interpretations of what parliamentary assistants are allowed to do. She's argued that their work helped with political activities related to her role as a member of the European Parliament. This is a problem that's happening all across the West, and I think it's very important that we know who's fighting for us, right? Obviously, Trump is very opposed to this kind of thing. He's experienced it himself and he's been calling it out this week. Elon Musk was also vocal about this. Viktor Orban, Matteo Salvini, the leader of Italy's League Party, Geert Wilders, leader of Dutch Party for Freedom, Santiago Abascal, leader of Spain's Vox Party, Tom van Grieken, the leader of Belgium's Vlaams Belang Party. As awful as this situation is that's happening across the West at the moment, there are people everywhere fighting, and I think it's important that we stay aware of those people and prop them up. And I just wanted to come back to this thing of the newspapers repeatedly calling Le Pen far right. Let's just have a look at her stances to understand what far right means nowadays. So on immigration, she advocates for stricter immigration controls, including prioritising French citizens for jobs and social benefits, deporting illegal migrants and restricting access to citizenship. Initially, she supported a Frexit, France leaving the EU, but has since moderated, now favouring a reformed EU with stronger national sovereignty. She remains opposed to the euro and Brussels' influence. There's really something to be said for this. When the EU started, it was supposed to be about trade only. It was an economic thing. And since then, it's developed into something much bigger than that and something much more out of control. Essentially, it seems that they've created a system where every country within the EU has given up its powers to unelected people who now have the say over what every country within the EU does. So what else? When it comes to the economy, she supports protectionist policies to defend French industry, wants to lower taxes for small businesses, and opposes globalist economic policies. So far, everything sounds pretty good and sounds very similar to Trump. When it comes to security and law enforcement, she calls for tougher crime policies, stronger policing, and harsher penalties for criminals with a focus on Islamist terrorism. With social issues, she opposes radical gender ideology, supports traditional French cultural values, and is skeptical of progressive social movements. With foreign policy, she advocates for diplomacy with Russia, is critical of NATO's role, and supports a more independent French foreign policy. And yes, she is planning to fight this ruling. So there are plenty of people out there who believe that she can fight this and run in the 2027 elections and win. Let's just have a quick look at her speaking before I want to finish the video by just going through some of the things that we can do to fight this battle that's occurring across the Western world.
Vous avez peur ou vous êtes inquiète?
Si j'avais peur de quoi que ce soit, madame, j'aurais décidé de planter des fraises. J'aurais décidé d'élever des chats comme activité principale. J'aurais pu entrer dans beaucoup de métiers où on ne risque strictement rien. Permettez-moi de vous dire que quand même, mon parcours peut laisser penser que je suis quelqu'un d'assez courageux et qui n'a pas beaucoup peur de quoi que ce soit, à partir du moment où, encore une fois, je me bats pour mon pays, que je me bats pour mon peuple, et que pour eux, je suis prêt à faire énormément de sacrifices, comme beaucoup de gens qui m'entourent.
I have to say, I think she is a very, very promising candidate for France, and I want to see her coming through this. As I said, to finish the video, I just want to go through this list because it's so easy to talk about this stuff without really having a solid idea of how do we fight it? What do we do? How do we exercise our power? So I'm going to go through a list that I've put together, and please tell me if you have other ideas, other suggestions, or if you would elaborate on any of these things, because I really think together we can figure out a way to fight this well. First, what we're doing here, using independent media coming together like we are to discuss stuff that the mainstream media won't talk about. And I'm sure many of you guys watch and support a number of independent media channels the same way that I do. And, you know, that in itself is a part of our power. The second thing we can be conscious of is our ability to boycott. We can send a message by boycotting the banks, for example, that have censored some of these politicians. And okay, to a certain extent, that's futile because the banks are all very much intertwined with each other, but it still sends a message. Propping up alternative finance like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and we can be vocal about our want for political change, for introduction of legislation that could protect against debanking. So what else can we do? Well, we have to be conscious as well to not just fight the cause online. I think there's definitely something to be said for creating and finding local communities to organise, to protest and to push back against bad laws and to push back against all of this. And I have to say, I don't think that's an easy thing to do. The actual physical community aspect is difficult. So I'd love to hear any suggestions that you guys have on how to go about that. The other message I think is very important to put out and that we keep at the forefront of our minds is that the only way that people can introduce bad laws, the only way that they can take power is by people complying and by people just accepting these things. So we have to keep that at the forefront of our mind. They cannot get away with this stuff if people don't comply. We also have to promote patriotism and history and pride in our culture, pride in our nations, and everything that's unique about those nations. We can also support the people who are in positions of power, who have influence, who are fighting for us. This is why I named all of these people across Europe as well and in the UK, because those people who do have influence and who are fighting for us, we need to prop them up as well. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm thinking a lot about recently, because as more of us are talking about this, as more of us are waking up, as more of us are speaking the truth and finding our communities together, I think it's also important that we talk about action. As always, I'm very, very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I appreciate your support so much, and I just really appreciate the community that we're creating. So thank you so much again, and I'll see you guys next time.